This is a step-by-step guide on how to start a business legally in Australia. I'll cover things that you absolutely have to do, such as your tax obligations, things you probably should do to make your life easier, and the traps to avoid, which are just really going to waste your time and your cash. And best of all, I'm going to show you how to do all of this on your own for little to no money. I've added chapters to each section in case you need to come back in future to reference a certain point, so it's probably worth saving this video before we start. And with that said, let's get into it. So the first thing you need to do is register your business, but before we can do that, you need to decide what type of business structure you want to go for. I'm not an accountant or a lawyer, but this outline of the different business structures should help you decide which one is best for you. If in doubt, speak to a professional. So sole trader is the simplest form of business structure. As far as tax is concerned, it's basically an extension of you. So at the end of the year, you include your business income and expenses in your personal tax return, the same way you would as like income from a job. If you've ever done any work for an ABN before, such as labouring or something like that, then it works exactly the same. The pros are it's easy and inexpensive to set up. You basically just apply for an ABN online and you're done. Can register a business name if you want to attach to the ABN. That's optional, and we're going to talk about that later on in the video. Fewer reporting requirements. Don't need to do a separate tax return for your business. It's all included in your personal tax return. But please open a separate bank account. I'm going to talk about that more in a minute. The cons are unlimited liability. So this is going to be a key deciding factor for a lot of you. It basically means that you're personally, there we go, got there in the end. You're personally liable for all business debts and obligations. So that means if you're planning on taking on some debt, so borrowing cash to get your business going, if it all goes pear-shaped, your personal assets could be at risk. Or if someone wants to sue you for some reason, again, you're at risk. I have heard your opportunities are limited by not being a company. Like, people might think you're not as professional. I've not experienced that. I think it depends on what industry you're in. I've only ever done sort of online businesses, and to be honest, most people don't even know or care if you're a sole trader. Tax rates is obviously another key deciding factor, because any profit your business makes will be added onto your personal income tax. So if you're already in a high income tax bracket from your job, for example, then any profit you make from your sole trader business is just going to get plonked on the top of that, and you'll pay it at your marginal tax rate. So it's suitable for individuals starting out in business with minimal risk. So freelancers, it's basically for people who just want to get started as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible. It's very easy to switch it to a company later on. My missus did that a couple of weeks ago, and I can tell it was easy because not one swear word came from her direction during that whole process, and it didn't take her that long at all. It's not suitable for businesses with significant risks or liabilities. Entrepreneurs seeking to attract investors or significantly grow their businesses, because you can't sell shares in the same way that you can as a company. And it's not suitable for people in the high tax bracket, like I said. Partnership is the next one we're going to briefly touch on. That involves 2 or more people, and the easiest way to think about partnerships is it's kind of like 2 or more sole traders that are joining together to do some business. It doesn't have to be a 50-50 split. It can be one person at 75%, one person at 25%, or 4 people at 25%. You just need to put that in the partnership agreement. Pros are it's simple to establish. Well, fairly simple. It's, I'd say, easier than a company. And relatively speaking, the costs are still lower than a company. The cons are you will have to do a partnership agreement. That basically just sets out who has to do what, the obligations of each partner and the profit share and things like that. You can get templates online for that, which leads me on nicely to the sponsor of this video, LawPath. They offer smart and simple business support to help your business get the protection you need. And one of their services is legal document templates. So in the click of a button, you can get a partnership template, literally fill in the blanks on the template, and then you're good to go. They've got heaps of other templates too, like business plans, equipment hire contracts, influencer contracts, non-disclosure agreements, basically anything you'll need as a small business starting out. And they've been kind enough to offer viewers of this channel your first legal document for free. You just need to go to lawpath.com.au/sidebusinessbloke, and I'll put the link to that in the description as well. Their platform also makes it super easy to start a company, manage tax and compliance, and get live support whenever you need it. I love that they're based in Australia, so you know that any information you find on their platform is specifically for the Australian market. You don't have to worry, is this for the American laws or whatever. And they've now helped over 500,000 Aussie businesses which is actually mad when you think about it. Anyway, that's enough of me getting excited about legal document templates. Let's get back to partnerships. Again, unlimited liability. It's slightly different in that one or more of the partners can have limited liability, but one partner, I believe, needs to have unlimited liability. So you could have a partnership between two people, and the agreement might be that one of those partners has limited liability. So if it all goes wrong for some reason, that partner's personal assets are not at risk. At tax time, you need to do a tax return for the partnership, and then once the profit for that is divided up to each partner, that then goes on their personal tax return. So suitable for small businesses where you want to collaborate with friends or you're not yet ready to invest the time and money establishing a company. Family businesses or spouses working together might want to go into a partnership because it allows you to split the profit, so it won't all get lumped onto one person's tax return, so that's going to work out cheaper for you. And again, it's not suitable for people who want to do like large scale businesses where you might want to opt for a company instead. Like there's quite a big gap in terms of costs and admin between sole trader and company. Not a huge gap, but there is a bit of a gap, whereas the gap between a partnership and a company is not that large. So if you're thinking about a partnership, maybe consider a company. Like I said, this is not personalized advice. This is just general advice based on my own life experiences. If you're not sure, speak to an accountant. And company, this is a very popular option, and I imagine a lot of you watching this video will be trying to decide between a sole trader setup and a company setup. So let's dive into it. So a company is a legal entity separate from its owners/shareholders. It offers limited liability to its shareholders, meaning your personal assets are generally protected from your company's liabilities. So it's quite easy to raise capital. It's fairly easy to just sell 10% of your shares to someone, whether that person is going to be an active partner or just an investor. With a company, you also have perpetual succession. So that means that the company will exist even if you pass away or if you sell it or pass it on to a family member, something like that, the company will still exist in its same form. Tax advantages, potentially there's lower tax rates and access to various tax benefits. For example, the tax rate for small businesses is currently 25%, I think, which is obviously lower than most people's personal tax rates. Cons, complexity and costs. It is a bit more complicated to set up. There's a couple more steps you need to do. Costs, I think it's about $600 to register a company. And then there's a few more sort of annual admin costs that you will be shelling out for. There's more reporting requirements. So companies must lodge annual tax returns and financial statements. It's a completely separate tax entity from yourself and has a completely separate tax return from yourself. You might have double taxation in that you'll pay tax from the company, and then if you pay dividends to yourself, you'll pay tax again on that. There are other ways to pay yourself, which is too complicated for me to get into. Speak to an accountant if you're thinking about going down the route of a company and you want to know how to pay yourself the best way. It's suitable for businesses with significant risk or liability concerns, entrepreneurs seeking to raise capital to bring in multiple investors, and medium to large businesses aiming for long-term growth. It's not suitable for businesses with minimal risk or people with very small, very simple businesses just wanting to get started as quickly and as easily as possible. This channel specializes in side businesses, and if you're watching this, there's a good chance that you are literally just a one-man show wanting to get started on something quickly and cheaply. If it's like an online business, sole trader is probably going to be the one, but this is not personalized advice, but I hope this has helped you get closer to a decision. And if you're still not sure, our sponsor LawPath has an awesome free quiz that takes about 30 seconds to do, and it will give you its recommendation. Just go to lawpath.com.au/sidebusinessbloke and sign up for a free account, and you'll see the quiz in the members area. All right, so now you just got to register your business. If you're going down the sole trader route, you just go to abr.gov.au. I'll put all the links I mentioned in the description of this video. You apply for an ABN, it takes 5 minutes and it's free, and then you're good to go. It's that simple. Same deal for a partnership. You'll just need to select partnership instead of sole trader when you're applying for your ABN. And if you want to set up your business as a company, you'll just need to go to register.business.gov.au and you can do it there. I'll put the link again in the description. You will need an ABN as well, but you can do that at the same time. So do you need to register for GST? This is a really common question that I get asked, and the short answer is you do not need to register for GST until you are earning $75,000 revenue each financial year. So that's not profit. So you could make 75 grand in annual sales, still not make any profit, but you would still have to register for GST in that case because it's based on your revenue. And if you don't know what GST is, by the way, it's basically a sales tax. It's 10% that goes on top of every product or service sold in Australia. There are a few exclusions such as food, but most things, have a 10% GST on the top. Personally, myself, I didn't register for GST when I started my first business. And then when it looked like I was going to pass over that threshold, I then registered. On one hand, it meant I had to suddenly pay an extra 10% of GST to the ATO unless you pass that on to your customers, which I felt like I couldn't at the time because I was selling to consumers, not to other businesses. But on the other hand, it's worth celebrating because it means your business is growing and you're actually doing well just to get to 75 grand revenue per year. It probably means that because of that new growth, there's room for you to make that money back in other ways. So for example, an online store, if you're doing that many sales, you may be able to get better shipping rates from Australia Post or whatever. You may be able to buy your stock in bigger bulk. You may be able to cut costs in other ways thanks to your new economies of scale. I should also mention that if you register for GST, not only do you collect GST on your sales and pay that to the ATO, anything you purchase which has GST on it, you can then claim that GST back from the ATO. So there are some cases where you'll actually be owed more than what you need to pay, but that probably means you're not making profit, I would imagine. So that's for you to do. Get the spreadsheet out, do some maths. If you're finding this video useful so far, hit the subscribe button for more tips on side businesses and small business in Australia. We'd love to have you along with us for the journey. All right, next up, make sure you understand your tax obligations. If you're a sole trader, it's part of your personal tax return. If you're a partnership, it's a partnership tax return, and then your share is included in your personal tax return. If you're a company, it's a completely separate tax return. On top of that, if you register for GST, you'll have to do quarterly business activity statements, also known as BAS, where you'll have to show how much GST you owe and how much you are owed, and then you'll settle the difference. Personally, I always use an accountant to do my tax returns and my BAS. I know a lot of you are going to say, oh,
you're wasting money, it's easy to do it yourself online.
But I just prefer the peace of mind in knowing that an expert's done it. And there are also a few things which your accountant might know about that you've not heard about. Another thing you'll probably want to do, it's not mandatory, but it's probably recommended, is to register a business name. So if you're a sole trader, your business name will literally just be your name. So again, when we were talking about how professional you look, it's probably not the most professional look if you're trying to come across as a business, but the business is just your name. So registering a business name means going to ASIC, and it doesn't cost much money at all, like it's under $100, and getting that registered business name attached to your sole trader will add a bit of a professional look for it. If you're a company, you can also register a business name. So when you register a company, it might be like Mike's Melbourne Mowing Party Limited, but if you wanted to call your company Mad Mike's Mowing, then you can do that by registering a business name and attaching it to your company. Again, all links in the description. Also, very, very, very strongly recommended, register a domain name for your business. The reason I'm bringing it up now, just after I've talked about business name, is that you're probably going to want your domain name to match your business name. So before you register a domain name or a business name, check if the domain names are available. So when you go to register a business name, the website will tell you if that name's already taken. And it's pretty much the same deal for domains. So if you go to your domain registrar or domain seller, type in your business name and you'll see if it's there. Sometimes you can change it slightly, like you might add an extra word on the end, like, I don't know, Wendy's hairdressing might be taken, but you might find that Wendy's ladies hairdressing Melbourne.com is not taken. But I'm always hesitant to do that because the longer and more complicated you make it, the less people are going to remember it. And even if they do remember it, they're probably going to fall asleep while they're typing that long ass thing into the search bar. Personally, I think you can't go wrong with the .com and the .com.au. If you know your business is only going to be local, then .com.au is perfectly fine. Sometimes it actually helps because it lets people know that your business is local and it's not an international one. But if you do intend to expand overseas, then you can't go wrong with the .com. I personally try and get both at the start. If one's taken, you can purchase it but it costs a bit of money and it's a bit of work because the other person might not even want to sell it. I've bought one before for like $600, which was great because I already own the .com.au, and the .com owner contacted me and said, do you want to buy the .com? And I bought it for like 600 US. So, wow, that's quite a lot now, getting off like $1,000 Australian. I've also sold one before where I owned the .com.au and the owner of the .co.nz, so the New Zealand version, contacted me and asked if I wanted to sell it, and I sold it for like a couple of grand. I wasn't doing it for that purpose. I was planning to actually start that business at some point, but I just never had the time. For the buyer, it meant that they didn't have to change their logo or their branding or anything like that. So I guess they got a good deal out of it as well. But that sort of illustrates the reason why you would want to be checking up front at the start if your business name is available as a domain name, so you don't come into extra strife and cost further down the road. Socials, I don't think it's as important. Like if you can't get the exact Instagram handle that you want, I don't think it's as important. You can just change that slightly. Unless your whole business is maybe a YouTube channel, then you would want the exact channel handle, I guess. But other than that, socials, not too important. Domain names and business names definitely are. So you may also need to obtain licenses and permits depending on what your business is going to be doing. For example, if you're handling food, maybe you can use the Australian Business License and Information Service, also known as ABLIS, I'm going to go for there, to identify if you need one and how to get it. Link in description. Next one, again, not mandatory, but strongly recommended. In my opinion, it's mandatory, but it's not legally mandatory, I don't think. Open a business bank account on day one, because if you have your business income and expenses all mixed up with your personal income and expenses, your future self is going to hate you. Like when the tax time comes, well, first of all, it's going to make it harder to see how much cash you actually have in the business because it's mixed up with your personal like cash statement basically. But when tax time comes around, you're going to have to go through that line by line, try and work out what was a business expense, what was business income, blah, blah, blah. And because there's a lot of expenses you're going to want to be putting on your tax return to help you with your tax return, right? So if you're having to go back through last year's like personal income going, was this Coles shopping, late night naughty movies at a hotel, what? Then you're going to struggle to work out what you can actually claim for. So yeah, do yourself a favor, get a business bank account on day one. There are plenty to choose from, so it's up to you, and they're really easy to open. The one I currently use, I chose just because it had the best credit card in terms of Qantas points. The first one I ever opened, it was because at the time it cost $10 a month to have a business bank account for most banks, and I found a bank that didn't charge you $10 a month. So that kind of shows you where my head was at back then in terms of money saving. All right, if you're going to be employing staff, you'll need to do things like register for pay-as-you-go tax withholding. Honestly, I've never employed like permanent staff. I've only ever used contractors here and there, so I know nothing about this. If you're going to be employing staff, then that's a pretty serious business. So you should already be talking to an accountant, not watching me on YouTube. Obtaining insurance. So depending on your business type, you may need certain insurances, such as public liability insurance. If you're going to be holding inventory or even like a lot of technology or manufacturing equipment, you're probably going to want like fire insurance and theft insurance on that. For my ecom business, I didn't have it at the very start, but I got it pretty sharpish once things got going. So I have my inventory and a bit of computer equipment insured against fire and theft. Also public liability insurance, so if someone gets injured or whatever, then you're covered in that way. Also, I was doing expo stands, so having a stand at expos, or, like the Melbourne Exhibition Centre or whatever like that. They won't let you have a stand there unless you've got public liability insurance. So if you're going to be doing that sort of activities, you're probably going to need it anyway. I don't know much in terms of like workers' compensation insurance, things like that. But yeah, do some more research on it, find out what you need, and then try and get the best deal, really. Another thing you might need to think about is contracts and legal agreements, such as service level agreements with clients or non-disclosure agreements with like staff or contractors, for example. You might want to use a lawyer to get these drawn up, or you might find that you can find templates for the more basic stuff online. Yeah, that's going to be completely personalized to your business. That's something you're going to need to think about and work out exactly what you need. Next up, set up record keeping systems. Another thing that's not mandatory, but it's strongly recommended, especially once you start making more than a couple of sales each month. So when you're just starting out, if you're maybe a freelancer and you only have 1 or 2 clients and not very many expenses, you could probably just get away with using a spreadsheet. As things start to progress and you start getting more entries on your income and expenses, you may wish to start using some accounting software. For my e-commerce online store, I use Xero, and I could not live without it. It captures all of the incoming and outgoing of my bank account, my credit card, and my PayPal account. It automatically codes most of them. So it recognizes all the sales and codes it as a sale, common expenses each month for certain suppliers. It recognizes what they are and categorizes them accordingly. And it's just great. I'll put a link to Xero in the description. There are other ones which I've not used, but they're probably similar, like QuickBooks. What's the other one? MYOB may have an option. It's fairly cheap. I think Xero is it's under $50 a month. And like I said, couldn't live without it. You're also going to want to familiarize yourself with Australian consumer law. You can do this at consumer.gov.au. This is especially important if you're not originally from Australia, because the consumer law may differ from where you're from. For example, I'm from the UK, where it's actually illegal to serve somebody a cup of tea that's too milky. That's not true. That's obviously not true, but it should be a law in Australia because they do not know how to make a cup of tea here. And just before we get on to the final step in this step-by-step guide, the penultimate step is consider your intellectual property, whether you need to register for trademarks or patents. And you can do this at ipaustralia.gov.au. If you've got a logo or even like a slogan that you want to protect, or you've got a product idea that you want to get a patent on, that's the place to do it, to go and get protection. It's fairly cheap. A trademark for like your company name or whatever costs about $250. It's more for a patent. I've done a trademark before. I've never done a patent. So with one of my businesses, the actual company name was quite generic in that it literally described what the products are that we sell. So I wasn't actually able to trademark the company name, but what I did do is trademark the logo. So that offers a bit of protection if somebody wants to copy our product and sort of try and pretend that they're us by imitating the logo. We are protected in that case. So yeah, bear that in mind. If your company name is too generic, then you may not be able to trademark it. Something to think about. Pro tip, you don't actually need to register a trademark to put that little TM next to your logo or your name. That basically says, hey, this is ours, and don't try and copy it or we'll come for you. Whether that actually holds up in court very well, I don't think so. I don't know, it might do something, but I like it because it just adds a bit of a professional look to any logo. Chuck that little TM on there. I don't know, I just think it transforms it. I try and remember to do it for all of my logos. To get the little R in a circle that you might have seen, that actually means it's a registered trademark, so you can't be putting that on there until you've actually registered your trademark. And finally, just remember to stay compliant with your ongoing obligations, such as your tax return, your business activity statements, renewing your business name, insurances, things like that. You'll usually be notified by the relevant people for each task or each thing that you need to renew. But it's good to sort of roughly have it in mind so you're not all of a sudden scrambling at the last minute to A, do the admin necessary, or B, fund it. So just sort of have that roughly in your mind when each thing needs doing. If anything I've discussed in this video sounds a bit tricky, or if you don't have time to do everything yourself, or if you just want the peace of mind from having an expert do it for you, then this video sponsor LawPath can definitely help you out with company setup, tax requirements, basically every single thing I've just mentioned in this whole video. If that sounds good, just go to lawpath.com.au/sidebusinessbloke. Save this video because there are chapters for each section. So as you come across each step, you may need to come back and watch it. That's going to be really useful for you. Share this with anyone who you think is a bit lost in terms of setting up a business in Australia. And subscribe to the channel. We're growing nicely and there's plenty more to come. You may often hear that the hardest thing to do in a business is starting, And that may be true. And if it is true, then the second hardest thing to do is to keep going. So if you've started a business, just keep going. You'll get there eventually. Often that's all you need to do. Just keep going. But a lot of people quit before they get there. So don't be one of those people. You've got this.